Welcome to the second part of the course Be as Good as You Can. But first I want to tell you that everything we talk about in this course is, of course, like the rest of our lives, it's a theory of things. And the thing to be as good as you can is, of course, built on that you should think yourself to make your own theories that is yours. So let's go and start to think about identification. What is identification? Maybe it's easier than we think. Identification is just that we make ourselves to be a copy of something else. That means that we compare ourselves to something. And when we compare ourselves, for example, to a father, if we are a father, we know how a father is acting, and that means that we can start to act in the same way. And that also means that we can be accepted to live together with others. So identification is extremely important, that we can understand who we are and other people can understand who we are and we can understand who they are, because that means that we can live together. But there is a problem with this when it comes to identification. That is that you have a brain that really loves it if it's very, very easy. So you can say the easier, the better. Okay, I should like to do one thing here. I should like to start to say that we can divide it into two ways when it comes to identification. We can invite it into be a stereotype or a chameleon. And if you are a stereotype, that means that you identify you as something that is really simple, like a cartoon, that is really clear. You can see it, exactly what your brain loves to do. You can see it very clear. And you can be stuck in a stereotype, that you can believe that you are the same person for the rest of your life, which you aren't. And I will show you that soon. Or you can be a chameleon. That means that you can decide yourself how you want it to be in the future. And you can, of course, decide to fit in as good as possible in as many environments as possible. Okay, I should like to do like this. If it's okay with you, I'm going to take myself as an example. To the left, it's me when I was a child. And to the right, on my computer anyway, it's me now when I am a little bit more grown up. Quite a lot of more grown up. But I can tell you the difference between from the first picture to the picture today is that when I was a child, I was like a little angel. I was very kind, very nice. I did sing in the Swedish church and then I started to be a little bit older, 10 years, 11. That means that then I did change and I started to be a totally dreamer. Dream about, I did have an enormous with fantasy, so much fantasy that I did almost forget when I was born. And it was a little bit embarrassing sometimes. Then I started to be a teenager. Then I started to be with long hair again, but a little devil, special to my teachers. That means that I have to go for 1 year in a special school so I could be a blacksmith. And after that, I didn't like my job and I didn't like what I was doing. So I started to be a little bit like a seeker. I did go on Interrail, and after that I did understand, after I have been working with youngs, and that I really like to work with people, but to do that I need to go to the university. So I have to study some courses, go to the university and be a student. I didn't feel so good when I was in the university, to be honest. And today I know that was because my identification was not to be a student in a university. I didn't change that. My identification of myself was that I was still a blacksmith, but in a university. And of course, that is not so smart to do that. I should, of course, have been a chameleon to be a student where I should be a student. Excuse me. I was not so bad at football, and opened the opportunity for me to start to work with children, because I did get a job in a social sector in a city in Sweden. And then in the same time I also have to go to the military force, and they did take me out as after tests and things like that I could be a sergeant. But I did recognize that the friends to me that was there, they didn't think about that. What we were training was to kill people without thinking. So I did say, nothing for me. That is nothing for me. I will not shoot. I'm sorry. If I make a jump after this, you can say, then I start to be a headmaster. I start to be a coordinator for schools in the region where I was living in Sweden. I did be a businessman, where I did start a private school in Catalonia, where I live now. I think I am a writer, and I am a pensioner. I am a father. I am a husband. I am a lot of things. A lot of things. And you could do the same now. You could summarize who you are. And if you look back, you can see that you have a lot of different identifications. So who am I? Am I an angel? Am I a dreamer? Am I a pacifist? Am I a rebel? Am I a pensioner? Am I a writer? Or things like that. Who knows? Then you maybe put the question here directly and say, but how is it? Isn't it a timeline? Can you really say that you are a writer or a reader or a student or anything like that? There must be a timeline. You put the seed and it grows and then it's ready. And maybe you could think that, it's my whole life. I put a little seed in the beginning, I become out something in the end. And from my way of seeing, that is absolutely not true. There is no timeline for an identification. I will take an example with that. If you will be the best football player in the world, how long time does it take? It takes 90 minutes. Maybe they put up on 5 minutes, or maybe it's penalties, but around 90 minutes, and you will get an identification if you win the World Championship in football, that you are the best player in the world that year, forever. So you're ready with an identification. It takes only 90 minutes to do it. So if you want to identify yourself as something special, you can do that quite easy. And for me, as I see it, there is no connection to time. But it's connected to other things. From the beginning, like I said before, the brain wants to have it very easy, and we need to understand. So for many years ago, with Aristotle and other thinkers, they start to compare us with fire, wind, earth, water. And it's not so difficult to understand. If the brain wants it to be really easy, then of course it's quite easy to say that if you are red, you are like fire, and if you are like fire, you are like a tiger. So that was something that is quite logic, very easy, and your brain loves it. So today it's very popular to do that you put yourself in a color and then you say, it's me. But I will tell you one thing. I start with say, if you are red, for example, then they use words like outgoing, strong, intensive, know what's right, a leader type, a problem solver, curious, competitive, strong will, easy to make decision. And if you are a green person, then you are a very social person. You are friendly, you are kind, you are helpful, you are loyal, you are a good friend, you are easy to deal with. And if you are yellow, you are very verbal, spontaneous, sensitive, inspiring, happy person. And if you are blue, you are logic, you are objective, you are careful, you are thoughtful. And all these words that I use now, they are of course connected to your way of having feelings and to think and give a value. You value them in a special way. And that means that there is always a risk that you can start to behave in that way. So if somebody look at you and you have red hair, they maybe can think automatically, because the brain likes when it's easy to say, "Wow, he's very fiery, and that is a hot lady because she's red-haired." There is always a risk. Depends on how you be identified. I will tell you like a story that is a little bit true, but I have make it up a little. When I did go to conferences many times, the leaders used to start with identification. And of course, they want to know who's in the local. And if there was somebody that, for example, did say on the questions, honest, says that I'm flexible, I am a social person, I love to live close to others, I am fast, I am responsive, and then the conference leader maybe will tell you, "Oh, you're a mouse, because you are fast, intelligent, you are a survivor, and you love to live with others." But think about that, if your friends then in the same time will be identified like a lion, strong, can take care of themselves, can take decision over other persons, things like that. There is a risk that you start to identify yourself and say, "Wow, I am a little mouse, and that means that maybe I should take a step back." If you're a chameleon and identify you, because it's quite easy for you, if you know all these words, you know the value in the words. If you start to identify yourself as a lion and a tiger, maybe you tell me, "Well, but that is to lie. That is lying." No, it's not lying. It's to identify yourself. And that is something you decide yourself, how you want to identify you. And if you identify you as a lion or a tiger, for example, that means that the others maybe will look at you in a different way. And I'm quite sure that you will have much more space in the group. I have talked about that identification has a lot to do, for example, with feelings and emotions. So we jump to that. Identity creates emotions and a behavior. And it doesn't matter who you are. I will give you an example. I'm quite sure that you know who this is. It's Ronaldo. Ronaldo is one of the best football players in the world ever. And he's still going strong, but he starts to be a little bit older. And he's extremely successful, extremely popular. And just to show that a little, I can tell you that when I have Googled him on internet, when it comes to his salary, he has about 33 million euros per year when it comes how much money he earn as a football player. That means that he has about 5,700,000 euros a week, or 1,500 euros every minute, or €2.5 per every second. So you understand that he don't have any problem with money. So if I should calculate that more or less, just very easy, I could say that if he has play for 10 years like a football player like him, that means that he will have like a pension of 250 million euros to live off for the rest of his life. So you understand that he's not a poor guy, absolutely not. But he's also human. He's really human. And I can explain this because one of the sports magazine did value players. They look at how many goals they have done, how many matches they have played, a lot of things they put in. And they did value Ronaldo 2020 to around 78,500,000. Not so bad to be valued to 78 almost 80 million euros. But for Ronaldo, no, he did get extremely irritated. Both verbal, he did really say what he was thinking about that page that did make value him only in almost 80 million euros. For him, it was absolutely too little. And he did get really angry, and he did, of course, put down that web page. And then you can say, why? How can a person that earns so much money, that is so extremely popular? Yes, because he has the same brain as you as me. We react in that way. If we have feel something that is not feel good for us, we act. That is an ancestor that comes up directly and say, wow, protect yourself. Come on, protect yourself. And then when we get into that situation, we stop thinking. And when we stop thinking, we act. So you can say that, for me, it's a little bit like you have 3 different parts. You get some information about yourself, you feel it, and after that you act, and after that you excuse yourself. So you can, if you are really want to be as good as yourself, you take 2 or 3 breaths, deep breath, and think a little before you act. But it doesn't matter who you are, just know that. So it doesn't matter if you are poor or rich or who you are. When it comes to identification, there is also one other thing that is very important. That is the way you identify yourself, and special people identify yourself, give you the option to act in special ways. So then you can say, if you look at this from a historical perspective, the worst you can do, absolutely the worst you can do, that is to identify humans as not humans. If we take step back to 1898 in England, they did give to Leopold II to be ruler for an area in Africa that is the same size as Europe, with between 11 and 28 million people. And what they did do in England in these years, that was to start to identify the people in Africa like unhuman. They are not human. And what did that mean? That did mean that it was okay to kill them. It was like to go on a safari. And for example, they did send troops to Sudan. It starts to be like a joy for them to go and kill African people. They did send troops to Sudan, and it was a fight between guns and sticks. England did lose 48 soldiers. 11,000 soldiers did die from Sudan. 16,000 was wounded. So it means that is 27,000 people. But one question that leaves us with that is interesting. These 16,000 people that was wounded, all of them did die. Why? Probably because they could identify these people like unhuman. That means that they could identify them like any animals. And an animal, it's okay to kill them. So when we identify people as not human, we also give people the right to have a special behavior. And this is very important. And then you can ask, of course, but who is that identify these people? Many times it's people quite high up in the hierarchy. People that is professors, that is teachers, that has a high status, and a lot of philosophers have done this. I can take, for example, before England did go to Africa, 1850, there was a philosopher that says in England, he says, when a dog's tail is to be cut off, it does the dog no favor to do this gradually. inch by inch. And on the other hand, when wild people are on the verge of destruction, it is no human to prolong their death, struggling by artificial means. The true human friends can only wish to accelerate the extinction of the wild people and work for its goal. And there is more people like him that they say almost the same things. That they say is that they are not human, and if they are not human, you can act, and we have our own history, and people that still were living in the Second World War, and when, for example, it was very easy to identify Jewish people like big noses and things like that, and from these caricatures, the stereotype, you can quite easily make them to be a rat, and to be a rat, that was just to kill them, and there is no problem. And so if we think in this way, can we do understand, for example, like Putin, Hitler, Caesar, Pol Pot, Genghis Khan, why they act like they do? And I think that it's quite easy to do that, to understand that, because when they look at the humans, they don't look at them as humans. They look at them like something that you must move in a game to get something. And for them, for example, when Caesar did make a thumb down to say that this has no right to live anymore, doesn't put him in any situation of bad feelings. For him it was quite normal. When one leader from Norwegian did ask Putin now, for example, to say that he think it's absolutely awful what's happening in Ukraine, where they kill people, normal people in the streets, and we can see that in videos. Putin's answer was quite easy, but people dies when it's a fight. So for him, it's like a cat take a mouse. It's not there is no feelings for him involved in what's happened, and that means that for him it doesn't matter. Then you can say, how come that they have got this identification? In the next model I'm going to talk about that, and I think that is very important, because it's we that give them the possibility. Of course, if we give them the opportunity to have an identification that they are absolutely in the top, they don't need to listen to anybody. Why should they? There is absolutely no need. If you compare this, for example, with two children that is fighting with each other, there will probably be a parent that comes between and say, stop. Now we stop and we do like this. And the parents can tell them how is right to act, and they will change, because they are children and the parents are parents. And when you are a child, you know that to be a child, it's okay that somebody tells you what is correct. But if you are a ruler like these big guys, because it's almost only guys that do things like this, you don't need to listen to anybody. Why should you? And one thing, and I will finish with that, because that is quite easy. If you should tell them that they do something that is absolutely wrong, and I told you that they don't need to care about that at all, then that means that you should put them in a situation that they should feel like somebody tells you something that is wrong. And what happened with you when you do that? Exactly like Ronaldo. You stop thinking. You just feel. And when you feel, you say, no, it's not like this. You get like a little child. And that is when you let your feelings take over instead of using your brain for thinking. And then doesn't matter who you are. The problem is, of course, if you are on the top, you don't need to listen to anybody. There is no meaning with that. Okay, this was a little bit about identification. If you want to have this in a text, you go to the website, and I will just show you the address, and I could show you the picture, of course, of these big guys, and who's the next? We don't know. That will be that. But if you want to have the text about this, then you go to snetwork.eu, and then you just print it out if you want to. But I want to tell you quite soon now, I'm going to put in under certification that you're going to have some questions, because what I said before is that it's you must build up your theories. You must think about who are you and who do you want to be, and of course, if I tell you something that doesn't have so much value because it's theories, is when you start to work with it, it has a value. So in some weeks, I hope that I'm going to have put the questions there. And if you want to have a certification about it, you just send me a mail and I will print out, I will send over a PDF with a certification where it says what we have been talking about and about your reflections. Okay, have a nice day. See you in the next chapter.